you're an aspiring leader, an established executive, an at-home mom, or a young person wanting to grow and learn, Marsha Martin will share actionable strategies for greater happiness, success, motivation, creativity, productivity, love, health, contribution, and fulfillment. Welcome to Talk This Way with your host, Marsha Martin. Marsha will guide you through the basics and unravel the ABCs of communication, leadership, and success by taking the wax on, wax off approach to communication mastery, ensuring that the skills you acquire will make you unstoppable. So now, please welcome the host of Talk This Way, Marsha Martin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk This Way. I'm your host, Marsha Martin, and we're live streaming from Bold Brave TV. This show will be every Tuesday night, 5 o'clock, so put it in your calendar. And if you want to watch past episodes, just go to boldbravetv.com, click on Tuesday, go down to 5 o'clock. Click on that, that's my show page, and all of the past episodes will be there. So if you didn't watch episode 1, I really advise you to do that because we shared a lot about what the show is about and what you'll need to be doing and thinking about. And also all my background is there, so be sure to look. And if you haven't gotten your journal yet, please do get a journal and be ready to take notes and have some insights so we can talk about all of those things. You feel free to email me, marsha@marshamartin.com, if you want to have your questions answered. So the purpose of the show, as I said before on episode 1, is that you are catapulted to greatness, that you discover and are able to access and utilize your inner power to create anything that you want in your life. I've been doing this work for I don't even want to tell you how long I've been doing this work, but it's a long time. And I've met with lots and lots of people and coached hundreds of thousands of people to get rid of the blocks and limiting beliefs in their lives. And that's what we're going to do on the show. I was talking to a possible coachee, somebody that wanted to have coaching from me. And she was sharing how she was so unhappy at work. And she'd been working at this place that she was so unhappy at for 2 years. And I asked her, why are you still there? She said she didn't like her boss. Her boss micromanaged her. She never had any free time. She didn't like the mood of the company. There were so many things she didn't like. And I said, well, you're so talented. You're so beautiful. You're so amazing. Why don't you look for something else? And she said what a lot of people tell me and what I've discovered in coaching all the people that I coach. She said, I'm afraid. And that's the trick, everybody. People are afraid because we haven't been taught how to handle certain things in life, how to create, how to manifest. We've been taught how to read, how to write. We've been taught arithmetic and history, but nobody taught us how to create a miracle, manifest a result, connect with another human being, come from our personal power, be confident, and able to produce the things that we want in our lives. And that's what this show is about. So let's start at the beginning. There's a few things I want to talk about and have you think about that are really important to your having the understanding of who you are. So first of all, there is a thing that I have noticed people do, and if you listen to them, they talk about it. And it's people strive and do their best to be comfortable, as if it's like a prize. If you listen to people, they'll say, "Oh, that makes me uncomfortable." Like you're supposed to stop whatever you're doing because now they're uncomfortable. Or if you listen to yourself, talk to someone else, you say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did I make you uncomfortable? I don't want to make you uncomfortable." Well, here's an interesting thing, if you want to think about this. The only place to be is in the zone of being uncomfortable if you want to grow. That's the only place that growth takes place. So, we're going to do some things on this show that may make you a little bit uncomfortable. But just know if you're in the uncomfortable zone, you're growing. There's no growth in just staying comfortable. And there's another thing, if you get too uncomfortable, which I'm not going to allow you to do on this show, then you go into a zone that I call insanity. So you want to stay in that zone on the outside of your comfort zone, but on the inside of your insanity zone. You don't have to do it all at once. This isn't a competition. You don't have to climb the highest mountain in the first step. Just stay a little bit in your uncomfortable zone. Another thing I'd like you to know about human beings, and I'm talking to you if you're a human being, is human beings are what I call thrown to particular behaviors. What I mean by thrown to is we automatically go that way. It's not like we try to or we think about it, we just do it automatically. And what we're thrown to, three basic big things. We're thrown to being right. We're thrown to looking good. And we're thrown to knowing the answer. In other words, when you get up in the morning and you get out of bed and you think about your day, you don't say, today, I really want to be wrong. I don't want to know how to do anything. I don't want to know the answer to anything. And I want to look really stupid and clumsy. No, no. We get out of bed and we say, today, I want to look good. I want to know what I'm doing. I want people to think I know what I'm doing. And I want to be right. And as a result of that being thrown to, it makes learning something new a little bit difficult. Because when you learn something new and you want to be an expert at something, you have to be willing to be a beginner. And being a beginner is not what we are thrown to. When we're a beginner, we have to try things out, we do it wrong, we look clumsy, we don't know how to do it, we don't know the answer, we're wrong all the time, we make mistakes. And that's the only way to being a successful expert at anything, is to start at the beginning. A lot of people who don't want to or aren't willing to be a beginner end up being a pretender. And they pretend they know, or they pretend they can, or they pretend they're getting it. But that's not the pathway to being an expert. And I want you to be an expert at being able to utilize your personal power and have anything you want in your life. So if you're willing to be a beginner, that means you're going to be wrong about things. You're going to look clumsy and do things wrong. You're not going to know the answer. And that's okay. What I tell my students when they're really good at being a beginner, in other words, when they're wrong and they look stupid, I say, pat yourself on the back. You just succeeded at being the best beginner there is. So congratulate yourself. In the last episode, I told you that I had a couple of abandoned young girls live with me from the time they were 8 till they were 16. And one of them was in really, really bad shape. And so I thought, I lived in Aspen at the time, we lived there, and I thought what would be good for her and to get some confidence and learn, meet some new friends would be for her to learn to ski. So I put her in ski school. Now, the first day she came back from ski school, she was all excited. And she said, Marcia, I had my own instructor today, all by myself. And I thought to myself, wow, that's kind of cool. I mean, usually on the mountain, they don't have one instructor per child. But I thought, okay, well, that's great. The next week, when she had her lesson again, I got a call from the ski school. And the ski school says, we have a problem. She won't be in the group. And I said, really? She said, last week, we were able to give her own instructor because we had some extra instructors, but we don't have that this week. So I said, okay, we'll put her on the phone. And I talked to her and I said, what's the matter? And she said, I feel so stupid and I don't want anybody to see my mistakes. And that's when I told her, and she was only 8 at the time. And I said, you know what? It's your job to be wrong and look stupid because you're a beginner. So I want you to do that job really well. You get out there and do the best job of being a beginner you can. Make mistakes, look silly, feel stupid, because that's what beginners do. Now, I think because she was so young, she's willing. And young people listen a lot better sometimes than us adults. So she went ahead and became an excellent skier. But I want you to remind yourself that it's really okay to be a beginner, especially when you're a beginner. Um, Another thing I want to talk about is you as a human being and language. A very, very interesting thing is you're about the only animal on earth that has language in the way that we do. Animals communicate with each other, but not through language. And that puts you in a particularly special position that you want to understand. Because to be effective in this life, you have to understand this. You, as a human being, live in a sea, in a soup of assumptions and interpretations. And you don't notice it most of the time, just like a goldfish in a goldfish bowl doesn't notice that it's swimming in water. It's just everything around it. And so it's that environment. It's not really conscious of the water. And a lot of times, as human beings, we're not conscious of how many assumptions and interpretations we're making. We go through life considering that what we're hearing, seeing, speaking is the truth, rather than just our interpretation of an action, or that we know what someone said when we don't take into consideration maybe we're assuming something we shouldn't. So I want you to realize that as a human being, you live in a soup of interpretations and assumptions, and it affects you in a lot more ways than you would ever imagine. I was at a restaurant at lunch during one of the workshops that I led in Toronto, and we had a small amount of time for lunch before the workshop would begin again. So I was looking at the menu and I thought I would love to have a Caesar salad, a chicken Caesar salad. And I don't like bacon on my Caesar salad. So I asked the waitress, is there bacon on the Caesar salad? And she said, no. And I said, oh, great. Okay, I'll have a Caesar salad. And she went off. And I expected that my Caesar salad would come without bacon since she said there was no bacon on the Caesar salad. And when she put the Caesar salad down in front of me, it had bacon on it. And I was so surprised. I looked at her and I said, well, I thought you said the Caesar salad didn't have bacon on it. And she said, oh, I assumed when you asked me if it had bacon that you wanted that. So even in small things like ordering a salad at a restaurant can totally screw you up unless you're very aware that people make assumptions and people have interpretations. And that's a big facet to your being able to be successful as a human being. Let's see. I think what we will do is start with the most important thing of communication, and that is this thing called listening. Listening is probably your most powerful tool in communication, and communication is your most powerful and necessary skill set in the art of communication, which is what you need to be an effective human being. And most people think listening is about hearing someone. So if I hear you, I'm listening. And in fact, a lot of people think that when you listen, you can do something else while you're listening because it's just about hearing. Well, on the other side of our break, I'm going to give you some information that probably will blow your mind and make you into a much more effective human being because we're going to look at and analyze what listening really is. This is Marsha Martin, your host of Talk This Way for Success, coming to you live streamed from Bold Brave TV. See you after the break.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Hey, here we are again. I'm still Marsha Martin, and this is still Talk This Way for Success, the Bold Brave TV show, live streamed. Okay, let's talk about this thing called listening, because this is the most important part of your communication skills and needs to be a tool in your toolbox to be an effective human being. And most people think, as I said before, listening is about hearing someone, and it's not just that. In fact, that's the least important part. There are several things that need to be so for listening to really happen, because what listening is when you duplicate somebody else's experience. So to listen to someone or to duplicate their experience, you need to be present. You can't be on your cell phone if you're really listening. You can't be thinking about something else or writing a paper while you're listening. It can be in the background, but if you want to duplicate another person's experience, you need to be present. And duplicate means that you need to be with them while they're sharing their experience so you get what they're sharing. And you need to be willing to allow whatever they're sharing to be okay, to be possible, to exist the way that it's existing. And a lot of us, we have our own idea of the way things are. And if somebody tells us something that we don't agree with, then what we want to do is stop them in the middle rather than listening and duplicating their experience and push it back or debate it or tell someone that we don't agree. So I'd like to make a distinction. I'd like to pull apart the difference between two things. The thing of allowing something to be the way it is and the thing of agreeing with it. You can allow something to be just the way it is and still disagree at the same time with whatever you're allowing to be. So if somebody has a point of view or a concern or a consideration, or they see the world in a certain way, you can allow them to have that particular point of view. You don't have to tell them you disagree when you disagree. Because if you are so intent on telling them you disagree, you're not really receiving what they're saying. You're not listening. So we need the capacity for you to have a distinction between allowing something and agreeing with it, so that you're willing to listen or duplicate somebody else's experience. And you need to be present. You can't be somewhere else. You need to be here now. There's another big thing about listening, and I'm going to take some time to talk about this because sometimes it's a little confusing when people first hear about it. It's what we call an already listening. An already listening is when you already have it before you come to the conversation. And an already listening is something that we all have as human beings. It's like there's this bubble around us, and we're living inside the bubble. And we see and we listen and we perceive through the bubble. It's kind of like if you had pink glasses on, everything would look pink. And so when you're surrounded by your already listening, everything gets distorted through it. And I'm going to explain how and where it comes from, but I want to discuss kind of the effects it has right now. So I'll tell you a story. When I was in Africa and I was on a safari with a dear friend of mine, and we were in a big truck, and we were going across the Serengeti Plains. And I happened to be driving at the time. And across the way, out the window, I saw this animal coming towards me. And I was looking at it because I was confused about what animal it was. Looked interesting, and I was so excited to be in Africa in the first place. And everything, it's not like there's animals outside. I'm in Florida and there's alligators, but usually they're over there in the water and I don't see them. But in Africa, there were animals all around. And this particular animal came closer and closer and closer and closer. And I kept thinking, well, what is it? What is it? Now, it got so close. It was practically on the car when all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, it's a giraffe. Now, my already listening, the way I perceive the universe, kind of what I held as what's so, the bubble that I looked through in life at that particular point was a head of an animal is very close to its shoulders. And the necks are just a little bit between the head and the shoulder. So I kept trying to see that. I only had space coming from that already listening to see what I considered was so. And so the only thing that showed up for me until it was just so in my face as a reality was what I was trying to see. And that's what we do with all of our friends and our relationships and our families. We have already listenings. We have already listenings of meetings, of events, of circumstances. And already listening is kind of like when you say to yourself before you meet the person that you know is a jerk. That's an already listening. That person is a jerk. That's surrounding you. And you're looking through that. And that listening creates a very small space for that person to show up in. And you only, when you're unaware of what your already listenings are, can see whatever is in the space that you give it. So if you consider somebody's a jerk, you'll come to the conversation with that as a listening of how you perceive the universe and how you perceive them and how you're listening before the conversation even starts. And then you will look for all the evidence that makes you right, because human beings are thrown to be right, about the fact that this person is a jerk. And here is what's even worse. even if the person is so not a jerk in that moment, and you can't find any evidence to prove that they're a jerk that makes your already listening right, you will make up a justification of why the person isn't a jerk this one time, and you will hold the already listening as what's so. You'll say something like, oh, they must have woken up on the right side of the bed, or they must have gotten laid last night, or they must have, and that's why they're not a jerk right now. But the truth of it is you only have the certain amount of space because you're inside your bubble of you're already listening for them to show up in. And even when they don't show up that way, you can't even accept it then. So I want you to think about what are some of your already listenings. And it's just not things like, well, that person's a jerk. It's things like, I already know. Oh, I know that. That's an already listening. And when you bring that already listening to the conversation, it doesn't matter what's new and what you're learning or what's available for you to grow. You're not going to see it because what you're going to see is what you already know. Another already listening is, I agree, I disagree. And that's how you listen. And there's so many other things in life besides whether you agree with it or not. Or another already listening is, it's good, it's bad. It's good, it's bad. It's right, it's wrong. Those are already listenings that we bring to the conversation. That's the space that's created for anything to show up in. And so that's what we're looking for. That's what appears for us. And that's all that we see. Have you ever gone into a meeting and then come out of that meeting and said, oh, nothing ever happens in that meeting? And the next time you go into the meeting, you know nothing's going to happen. It's not important. It's a waste of time. Well, that's an already listening you're bringing into the meeting before the meeting even starts. And if you bring that already listening, what happens is that even if it's a great meeting, it could be fabulous, it could be wonderful, it could be the best meeting that ever happened, you'll find the one thing that proves to yourself and makes your already listening right that that meeting is worthless. So this already listening has power. And it's kind of like in the old days when I was young, because I'm older than most of you, I'm sure, there was a thing on a camera, because we didn't have smartphones then, and our phone didn't have a camera on it. We had an aperture that opened and closed to let light in or not so that we could take a better picture. And whether there was a lot of light or a little light would change how the picture looked. And that's how your already listening works. It's like you create an opening or you create a smaller space. And whatever opening you're creating or small space that you're creating, that's the room that something has to show up for you. Now, after the break, I'm going to talk about where it all comes from. But I want you to think of it as you're already listening is kind of like you're creating this big space or a clearing. So if you went into a big forest and you cut down a bunch of trees and you cut enough down that you could build a shopping center, there would be enough space for a shopping center to show up. But if you just cut down one tree or two trees, all you would have would be the space for a teepee. Well, when you go into a meeting or see a person and you're already listening is, they're stupid, they're a jerk, this isn't going to work, I don't like them, they talk too much. All of those are already listenings that are small. There's another way that we can say we can create a space, which is, we call it a generous listening. And I want you to start practicing generous listening. Generous listening is when you create a lot of space for whatever shows up, rather than just a small space from your judgment from your last experience of this person or this particular circumstance. And when you create a lot of space, it doesn't mean that that person's going to show up fantastic. They could still be a jerk in the next moment when you meet them. But The difference is if you create a lot of space for them to show up any way they can show up that way in case they are different this time. But if you don't create all of that space, the only way they can show up for you is in the small space of your already listening. And the trick to creating a generous listening is to kind of trick your mind on how you listen. And it's to do this: pretend whoever you're listening to or whatever you're in front of, pretend the person is brilliant. Just pretend, because think about it. If you really know someone's brilliant, don't you listen differently? And pretend that the thing that they're saying is possible rather than being so sure it's wrong or it's right. Just consider giving it a lot of space to exist in the most best way it could, as if it's brilliant, as if it's possible. It's the way that we listen to small children. You know, when you have a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old around you and you just go, and even when they're younger, and they could have mud on their face, they could be holding a frog, they could be spitting up. It doesn't matter. You go up and you go, "Oh, you're so wonderful. You're so beautiful. Oh, you're just so perfect." We give them a generous listening no matter what they're doing. We don't say, "You shouldn't do that." Not when they're tiny like that. We really give them that generous listening. So when we come back from the break, we're going to take a break now. And I want to tell you where the already listenings come from, because we all have them and they get in our way of being able to create what we want. This is Marsha Martin. I'm your host of Talk This Way for Success. And this is live streamed from Bold Brave TV. See you after the break.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality? But it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating. Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. You know, it feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hey, welcome back. It's Marsha. I'm your host from Talk This Way for Success, and we're live streamed here from Bold Brave TV. Okay, let's take a look at where already listening comes from. It comes from a lot of different places that shape the bubble that you live in, which is your already listening. And one of the things that shapes you and your already listening is the context of a situation. So think about that you're on a plane and the flight attendant says, "Please give me your attention so I can tell you how to put on your seatbelt." So what do? Well, if you've ever flown even one time, probably what you do is consider that whatever they're going to say is not necessary, and you kind of go away from the flight attendant, let them do their job, which you don't think you need to be there for that. And it's background noise. And you figure from the context that you don't need that information anyway. But let's say what happens next is the pilot gets on the radio and says, "Oh my God, the right engine just stopped." In that instant, your already listening goes from "it's background noise, I don't need it," is shaped by the context of the situation to, "Oh my God, I'm listening with every breath I have in my body." And you are present and you are absolutely listening with every morsel of anything that you have. So context plays a big role in what shapes your already listening, who you are as a listening, how you perceive the universe. It depends on the context or the frame of reference. Somebody might say, "We've only got 3 more days to produce this result. We've been working for 3 weeks," is another way of saying something else. Well, we've only got 3 more days, you might take in one way or another way. Whereas when somebody says, "We've been working on this for 3 weeks," one of the ways you might take it is to say, "We need a break." Another way you might take it is, "There's only 3 days left." So the context of the situation shapes how you receive something, how you listen, how you bring it in, how you get it. Another thing that shapes your already listening is your culture and your historical background. So a lot of us grow up in many different places. I grew up in California. I'm from the United States. And I remember the first time I ever spoke in England. It was when I was a young girl, and there was about 1,500 people in the audience. And I thought I did a fabulous job. And this woman came up to me and she said, "You're so American." And how I listened was, "Well, thank you," not realizing she was just insulting me and kind of telling me that I was too big, too loud, and, not nice in Britain. So your historical background and your culture shape you. If you grew up in Germany as opposed to South America, as opposed to the United States, as opposed to Italy, there's all sorts of different rituals and traditions, and everything from food to geography to the history of your people. Many of us who are Jewish have parents or grandparents or great grandparents that went through the Holocaust, and that shapes how they view the universe, whether they can trust someone or not, whether they feel safe or not. So your culture and your history, your country you live in, your history of your family, your heritage that's handed down in the traditions and the stories shape how you view the world, how you listen it. Another thing that shapes your already listening is your personal experience. So something happens, and then it is a particular way. You're at a meeting and something happens in it that you think is valuable, or nothing happens and you think nothing happens in this meeting. Or you're with a person and they're boring, or they're shy, or they're whatever in that moment of your experience with them. We're so caught in our experience of the past that a lot of times we bring the past into the future. So rather than realizing every moment is a new moment of now, and every moment has its own possibility of how circumstances, resources, events, and people would show up. But we don't consider that. Instead, we think, "Oh, it happened once, it's always going to happen. That's just the way they are." That's an already listening. And it comes from and is shaped by your personal experience. Think of somebody in your family. We all have a few people in our family, I'm sure, that we think are jerks or that are lazy or that never stop talking or that think they know it all. We have all sorts of labels that we've placed on them because something happened in the past where we made that particular interpretation, and then we act in life as if that interpretation of that particular action in that particular time is the way they are. And we say they're going to be that way forever. And that becomes an already listening from our personal experience that we bring to the conversation before the conversation even begins. So think about how you can be more aware of giving that generous listening space. Listen as if they're brilliant. Listen as if what they're saying is possible. That doesn't mean you have to agree with it. You can allow it to be whatever way it is, but be present and see if you can allow it to be the way it is in this moment instead of making it the way it was the last time you were there. So personal experience has a lot to do with things. Another thing, when you think about it, is your mood. Your mood will shape your already listening. If I'm in a bad mood, I'm listening different than if I'm being enthusiastic or I'm happy or I'm satisfied. If I'm sad, I'm going to listen differently. It shapes how I receive something. If I'm resentful, if I'm angry. So my mood shapes my already listening that then I bring to the conversation before the conversation even starts. Same with our bodies. Our bodies can get tired, and when we're tired, we perceive differently, we listen differently, we bring our tiredness to the conversation, and we view life through our tiredness, and our life or the events in front of us show up differently than when we're totally awake and alive and vital. When we're sick, we listen differently. So our body and our mood shape our already listening. What is another thing that shapes our already listening a lot is our past assessments. And that kind of goes in hand with our past experience, because whatever happens in the past experience, then we interpret it and we make an assessment about what it means. And that assessment then shapes our experience of the next time we're with that person or at that event or deal with that circumstance. So here's the thing that really is important for you to understand about an already listening is everybody has one. Everybody's walking around in this bubble, like everybody has pink glasses on. And what you want to do is to kind of notice that you're speaking into somebody's already listening. You're not speaking directly. They're not getting what you're saying. You know, results are more a function of what's heard than what's said. You may say something, but that person over there that you're saying it to is listening from and already listening and interpreting in their own world what you mean and making assumptions about what you're saying, because they also not only live in a bubble of an already listening, they're swimming in a sea and a soup of assumptions and interpretations. So doesn't matter totally what you say. It matters how it lands. It matters how they receive it. And you've got to get to a place where you notice that and are aware of it enough that you begin to speak into a person's already listening. And if you are observant and aware, and if you care, if you have a little bit of compassion and a teeny bit of patience, it's easy to see what people have as already listenings. And then realize people are speaking into your already listening. So whatever they're saying filters through your bubble too. And take a little bit more time to be present, to have a generous listening so that you have the best chance of connecting and interpreting in such a way that you get what they're saying and you're allowing them to be who they are in their best sense rather than turning them into the small space that you've created for them and only seeing what you want to see or what you expect to see and perceive. The other thing is when this already listening happens, it has power over you if you're not aware of it. The thing that's going to give you effectiveness in the world and make it be more effective for your being a person that can create what you want in your life is if you start being aware of what your already listenings are. And that's a simple little exercise. I want you to write this in your journal so that you can start doing it between now and next week when we meet again. Just say to yourself, what's my already listening of? What's my already listening of this person I'm about to meet? What's my already listening of the meeting I'm about to take? What's my already listening of the phone call I have to make? What's my already listening of this circumstance that I'm involved with? And you'll hear what your already listening is. It'll come to you. You'll realize, oh, my already listening is he's a jerk. Oh, my already listening is it's not going to work out. Oh, my already listening is I think I know it all. Once you're aware of it and you identify it, then what happens is it has less power. And then it'll be easier for you to create a generous listening of, I'm going to listen as if, and be present while I'm listening, duplicate, be interested. I'm going to listen as if the person is brilliant and as if what they're saying is possible. Okay, we're going to take another break. And I am Marsha Martin, your host of Talk This Way for Success, being live streamed from Bold Brave TV. And when we get back, we're going to work on some of the things that you want in your life that you don't have right now so that we have something to go on this journey with and create. See you in a bit.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Marsha Martin here, your host of Talk This Way for Success, which is being live streamed from Bold Brave TV. So I want to take some time now to do one of my favorite things, which is really to discuss and have you think about what you want in your life. And when we're creating goals for ourselves, there's a few good tips that make our goal setting more productive. So I want to go over some of those things. And as you think about between now and next week, what you want to be, what you want to do, what you want to have, maybe what you want to change, what you want to stop. Think about all of those things. Think in this term, that a worthwhile goal needs to be something that's a little bit beyond what you see as possible. Not so far beyond that you consider it impossible. So no fantasy kinds of goals. nothing that you know can't happen. It's not that it can't happen, but if you don't consider it's at least possible, you won't be able to create it. So something that is possible, but you can see you're going to have to stretch, that you would have to be a different person in order to achieve it. You would have to grow a bit yourself. You would have to be uncomfortable. You might not know how to do it, but you can see it would be possible. You might not be totally confident that it can happen, but your courage is big enough to go through the fear. So something that's a little out of reach, but not impossible. Think of it like if you're on a merry-go-round, if you've ever been on one of those merry-go-rounds where there's a coin that you grab and you're sitting on your wooden horse and you have to stretch really far off to the side to grab the coin, the ring. Think of it that way. It's not so far away that you know you can't possibly grab it from the horse, but it's far enough away that you have to be uncomfortable and stretch. So begin to write some things down that you want in life, that you would like to create. And don't think that it doesn't need to be something you know you can do. I want it to be something that you know maybe it won't happen or you're not quite sure. You might have to take a risk. It's a little bit beyond what you consider possible right now. And think of it in terms of, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to have? What do you want to change? What do you want to create? What do you want to give away? What do you want to contribute? And think in all the areas of your life that you can think in. Think of in terms of your health. Think of in terms of your wealth. Think of in terms of your happiness. Think of in terms of your family. Think of in terms of your passion. Think of in terms of your spiritual growth. Think of in terms of everything you can think about in terms of what's important in your life in all facets. And write some of those goals down in your journal so that we can apply the information as we go through the next many weeks together on this journey and have some of those things actually be created in the world. I promise you, if you hang in here with me, if you do the work I ask you to do, if you do the exercises, if you watch the programs, I promise you, because I've done this before, it's not my first rodeo. I've been here for a long time and I've worked with over 300,000 people around the globe. It can happen, and it will happen if you're willing. So trust me, I'll get you through your fears. I'll teach you all of the laws and the concepts and the principles and the fundamentals of how life works, how your body works, how your mind works, how communication works, how to bring things into existence, how to manifest. It's all about magic. I'm going to turn you into a sorcerer or a sorceress. And it's going to be so fun. So write down the things that you can dream up. Remember when you were a child and you dreamt and you weren't afraid to dream. You didn't say, oh, I can't have that. And don't think about the circumstances. Don't think about, well, I can't have that because of something. Just think of what's possible. What can I see as a possibility? And then put it in your journal and bring it back next week. I'm looking forward to having you next week. Next Tuesday, 5 o'clock p.m., right here on Bold Brave TV. This is Marsha Martin. I'm your host. I'm so delighted you've been here. I look forward to having you again next week. Have a lovely, wonderful, powerful, productive, and joyful week.
This has been Talk This Way with Marsha Martin. Tune in each week and discover that the effectiveness of your communication dictates the quality of your relationships, the profits of your business, the results you produce, and your overall success in life. Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Bold Brave TV network.